I love fighting games. I grew up in the 90s, and while we're living in a new golden age for the genre, my fondest memories come from bashing buttons and jamming joysticks in the arcade. I still look back fondly on dropping over $20 in borrowed quarters to beat Street Fighter II with my stepbrother Matt. We beat M. Bison using Blanka with a crowd of teens and 20-somethings watching and cheering us on. It was epic. But while the arcade has all but died, the internet has become strong in its stead. Solid netcode, services like Twitch and YouTube, and massive tournaments and conventions have kept the community alive and well. I've wanted to do a video series on fighting games for a while now, not only because they've been such a strong part of my life that have provided me hours of solo entertainment and the opportunity to bond with friends, but also because they've almost always got interesting universes and diverse characters. Especially in the more obscure games, you're bound to end up with at least one or two real gems that set the game apart from all the others, even if it's the same basic principle. So, throughout this series we'll be exploring different fighting games, focusing on the fluff of story and character rather than the crunch of special moves and combos. Let's kick things off by looking at the most classic of classic franchises, the first title that comes to most people's minds when you say fighting game, Street Fighter. Now, I don't have time to talk about everyone in the franchise in this video. I have other games I'm excited to cover after all. And I don't want to just run through my top favorite characters because a lot of them are well known even outside of the fighting game community, like Ken and Vega. Instead, let's take a look at my favorites among the more obscure playable Street Fighter characters. What counts as obscure? Typically limited to one numbered set of games or less. Nobody with extreme crossover popularity, and definitely none of the original 12 playable characters or bosses. I'd make a similar rule about the still fresh Street Fighter V, but, well, they haven't exactly given me anyone new to write home about. Except for Rashid of the Turbulent Winds.
Remember the name well.
There's a lot to love in the EX series and Street Fighter III, so let's just stick to 8 for this list. The same number of World Warrior selectable in the original Street Fighter II, in mostly no particular order. Mostly. Number 8. Kairi, Street Fighter EX series. Sort of like Street Fighter's answer to Kazuya Mishima, Kairi is a character exclusive to the EX branch of the franchise. This meant we were unlikely to see him in the future due to licensing issues with Eureka Games, who developed the side series of Capcom's Giant. However, the EX character profile showed up on the Street Fighter V website, and there was actually a playable demo for Street Fighter EX4 on April 1st featuring Kairi himself that was purported to not be a joke. So we can still hold out hope. Kairi was part of a renowned martial arts clan thrown from a ship at sea during his travels that caused him to break out with a nasty case of amnesia. Now he fights full of mysterious demonic power, trying to reclaim his past. A character like Kairi has an interesting place in the Street Fighter universe. While he's arguably one of the more traditional concepts on this list as far as fighting games go, a potential connection to Akuma and a similar yet unique take on the ubiquitous Ansatsuken style make him stand out. His power-charged state with a full EX meter that allows him to negate projectiles, for example, and his downward striking Ryujin Kyaku attack were some of my favorites to abuse while playing the game back in high school. His design in EX2 and 3 resonated with me so much, in fact, that any martial artist with amnesia described to me ends up bearing a striking resemblance to Kairi in my head. Number 7. Hakan, Street Fighter IV series. A character who's probably still fresh in the minds of a lot of people that I just couldn't help but add. I was skeptical about Hakan when I first saw him previewed for Super Street Fighter IV, but once I got my hands on him, I really had a good time. His oil mechanic is so unique and interesting, losing friction as you douse yourself in oil, making yourself more unpredictable as you move around the battlefield. And also, it's so shiny. So shiny. Hakan doesn't have the crazy backstory some of the other oddball characters have. He's a family man, he makes oil, he likes oil wrestling. His hair is turquoise because he's Turkish. He thinks his style is the best, and he has a big, friendly, boisterous attitude. I'm still holding out for the original concept for his Super Street Fighter IV character slot to show up someday, though. Karate Clown! But I'm happy we got Hakan in the end.
Nothing beats Hakan's cooking oil!
Number 6. Oro, Street Fighter III series. Oro is an ancient, mysterious hermit who seeks a fighter that is worthy to inherit his fighting style. He is of Japanese descent and hails from the Amazon jungle, where he lives in a cave with many pets, including a turtle and a dog. If those two sentences aren't chock full of Street Fighter-style quirkiness, I don't know what is. Rumored to be based on the long-lived founder of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Helio Gracie, Oro is a master of Senjutsu, a mythical Chinese martial art. His mastery over both it and his internal chi has granted him immortality. And I guess golden skin? Oro magically seals away one of his arms for competitive fighting to give his opponents half a chance, which means he has a very unique one-handed style. His animations are hypnotizing in a way, the way his hair flows when he moves, and the impressive way he executes a wide variety of techniques with only one arm. Oro is a delight to watch in action. Recently, he appeared in the opening to Dhalsim and Karin's stories in Street Fighter V. This has given a lot of his fans, myself included, hope that he may be playable at some point in the future. While he doesn't seem to be slated for Season 2's DLC package, there's always Season 3 to give us another chance at mastering Senjutsu ourselves. Number 5. Doctrine Dark, Street Fighter EX series. While he may look like Leon Kennedy's psychotic twin brother, Doctrine Dark is actually an interesting foil for fellow Street Fighter and Final Fight military mastermind, Rolento. Driven mad when Rolento ambushed his unit and killed every other man within it but himself, Dark uses garrote wires, hidden blades, and explosives to accomplish his plans for terror and revenge. His targets are Rolento, of course, and his former superior officer, Guile. And hey, if Dark is in, that means we get his foils. Rolento is always a welcome addition to the Street Fighter roster, as is giving Guile something to do besides mourn over Charlie. While everyone loves a good toe-headed psychopath, I am a big fan of Vega after all, Dark's value lies strongly within his moveset. Pulling opponents around the battlefield, slitting their throats and blowing them up from behind, dropping bombs and otherwise engaging in tactics more likely to be seen in Metal Gear than Street Fighter brings a lot of visceral satisfaction to your fights. I like to think that he might play a lot like Injustice 2's Batman if he were in a game today. Now, if only we could find him a better costume designer. Number 4. 12. Street Fighter 3 Third Strike. A lot of fighting games have done shapeshifter characters, from Blob and Clay Fighter to Shang Tsung in Mortal Kombat, but none are quite as well executed as 12. He has an interesting default look, a creative moveset of his own, with a stretchy body, gliding wings, and that creepy spider walk. I love the way his transformations are shaded and toned like him, and how the noises those clone fighters make have a filter on them to make them sound more like 12 as well. His backstory isn't much to write home about. He's a killing machine genetically engineered by the Illuminati and acts like it, and you only really get that if you decode his binary cipher. But while a solid and interesting personality would help this character stand out more, your moves are this cool you don't really need much character. Number 3. Q. Street Fighter 3 Third Strike. I draw a lot from Street Fighter 3 for this list because it's the game in the series that I have the least interaction with. But at the same time, it showcases a lot of interesting changes. Third Strike especially is very interesting because chronologically it's the last game in the series timeline, with Street Fighter 4 and 5's events taking place just before it. The potential for what can happen beyond this point in Street Fighter 6, assuming they actually continue the story instead of making another game to fill the gaps, is tantalizing. But I've only recently interacted with this iteration, as Street Fighter 3 originally showed up on the Dreamcast, a console I never even played, much less owned, and it wasn't in stores in my area when it was released on PS2 and Xbox. It would seem like most people stateside were in a similar boat based on the sales figures I've been able to find, until the re-release on PS3 and Xbox 360. It's had a healthy enough revival in the FGC since then, but this incredible game and I just kept passing each other like ships in the night. Anyhow, Q. He looks like Robot Rorschach, fights like Judo Frankenstein, might not have a skeleton, seems to have been in the game since the original Street Fighter 2, and everybody wants to know who he really is. Chun-Li's dad? Charlie Nash? Balrog? M. Bison? Some nefarious agent who's secretly been around since Street Fighter 2? That last remaining shred of Mega Man's dignity fighting against an unfair, cruel world? Nah, that's dead. Whoever he is, Q is a cool customer with a lot of intrigue and just as much potential. Number 2, Skullomania, Street Fighter EX series. Skullomania was an average salesman named, bear with me on this, Saburo Nishikoyama, who wasn't performing up to his company's standards. Because of this, he was forced to put on a costume and act out in a hero skit for the store's customers in a bid to drive up sales. But when he did, he tapped into his hidden desires, a deeply rooted thirst for justice that pushed him to become a real vigilante, protecting the world from evil and fighting top-ranked martial artists to hone his skills. No, I'm not kidding, that's his backstory. Skullomania is the best kind of silly. He's like the Deadpool of the Street Fighter universe, irreverent and disconnected from reality, but still really good in a fight, and ever so slightly self-aware and tongue-in-cheek. His fighting style is nothing to write home about, but like the opposite of 12, he makes up for it in sheer personality and enjoyability. Even that outfit, that scarf! If I could just have one character from the EX games in Street Fighter V, it'd be Skullomania. Or maybe just replace El Fuerte with him in 4. Yeah, that'd be great too.
悪は滅びろ
Number 1. Eagle. Street Fighter Alpha 3 Max. This tall, blonde, mustachioed, homosexual English gentleman. This glorious homage to Freddie Mercury, one of the greatest musicians of all time, armed with 2 beat sticks and a dignified air. This fucking guy. Eagle appears playable only in the Game Boy Advance and PSP releases of Street Fighter Alpha 3. He was in the original Street Fighter, but he was a computer-controlled opponent. He was playable in Capcom vs. SNK 2, but that wasn't a main series title, and it sure as hell wasn't on store shelves in my neck of the woods. I was surprised when I managed to snag a copy of Capcom vs. Tatsunoko. But Eagle and I met on a cool autumn afternoon. I picked up a copy of Alpha 3 Max for my PSP to have a fun traditional fighting game to play amidst side-scrolling printy antics and the unique experience of Dissidia Final Fantasy. I cycled through the characters, made sure they hadn't messed up Ken somehow. They hadn't, of course, and he had my favorite banana yellow outfit selectable, and finally decided to check out Eagle. Never in my life have I encountered a moveset that fit my fighting game mentality more perfectly. He had reach and rhythm, convenient combos that made sense to my fingers, and all his frames were just so damn stylish. No fireballs, no crazy body-bending attacks, just a dude beating you to sleep with a pair of sticks. What's more, is that Eagle being a stronger presence in the Street Fighter universe would have solved a lot of problems before they got bad. Eagle was playable in Street Fighter Alpha 3, which falls chronologically before 2, 4, 5, and 3. He was on a mission to test his fighting skill and thought Guile would be a worthy opponent, but was turned down due to Guile and Chun-Li being busy pursuing Shadowloo. When he finds out Sagat, the man he was hired to beat in the original World Warrior tournament, is a goon for Shadowloo, Eagle takes him down to fulfill his contract. By being so BA, he convinced Sagat that serving Bison was a stupid idea. Then kicked Bison's ass and saved Charlie from sacrificing himself, all while looking twice as dapper as Dudley and 3 times as manly. Capcom, you own this character. Please bring him back to me. We've already been apart far too long.
Shall we do?
So, those are 8 World Warriors for the most esoteric corners of the universe that I happen to love, though they're by no means the only ones deserving of attention. Tell me some of your forgotten favorites in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll be back next week with my first full dive into a single series, because while the legacy of Street Fighter may be immortal, this game was eternal. White out.